I know I'm capable of more.
Yeah.
Going through a period of time where you know you are capable of more, but you're not doing more, and that feeling of I'm not living up to my potential.
Yes. Gut-wrenching. That is gut-wrenching feeling for me. Yeah. I knew I was made for more. There's something, and that was helping me kind of pull myself out of that stuck feeling of I need something more than just being at home with this baby every day all by ourselves. Like I needed more. And no one's gonna come in and save you and rip you from your bed and say, get up, wake up, you're not living your life, you got to do it yourself. And if you don't, you're going to grow up to be an old person with a lot of regrets, and we're going to have a lot of time in our hands when we can no longer walk and work and function like we usually do. Money's not everything, but money gives you options, and I think when you have options, that opens doors, that makes your life a little easier, so it's not so stressful and hard in hard times. And that's important to me.
Welcome to Her Purpose, the podcast where together we dive into the inspiring journeys of women who are living out their purpose, not just for themselves, but in a way that serves others and creates lasting impact. I'm your host, Kendra Morris, and I'm here to share stories of women who've discovered their passions, overcome obstacles, and found fulfillment in stepping into the work that they know they were meant to do. In each episode, we'll explore what it means to live fully, embrace your unique gifts, discover the purpose in past experiences, often painful ones, and use them to make a difference in the world. So if you're ready to be inspired and empowered to pursue your own path of meaningful purpose, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. And remember, let no one clip your wings. In this episode of Her Purpose, I sit down with Gina Sainsbury, a stay-at-home mom who felt lost in being just a mom and knew she had to intentionally pursue something for herself outside of her role as a homemaker. Her journey led her to develop a passion for silks, an aerial acrobatic art form that not only reignited her spark, but evolved into a thriving home-based business where she now empowers others to find joy and purpose through movement. Gina opens up in our conversation about the struggle of losing herself in motherhood, the importance of knowing that taking time for yourself is not selfish, and how following her inner knowing gave her a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. A quote that she holds dear that inspired her to push past her fears of imposter syndrome and doubt early on is this: your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people will not feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. It is not just some of us. It is in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fears, our presence automatically liberates others. By Marianne Williamson. Enjoy the episode. I want to know, there must have been a period of time where you weren't pursuing anything that you were passionate about.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was hard because I was a stay-at-home mom. And I've worked my whole life. I've performed my whole life. I was always involved in something. And then once I had my first baby and we both decided that I was going to stay home, it was such a shock. I wouldn't have had it any other way. I loved being home. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea like, oh, it's so hard, it's so bad. It's not bad. It was just so different. And my personality was, I was so consumed by this little innocent baby that I gave my whole time and attention. I mean, most moms do, right?
Right.
And so it was about 1.5 years after I had him. No, it was probably about 2 years that I had had enough. I'm like, okay, I've got to find me again.
Yeah.
I've got to do something for myself. I need to go back to the gym. We started walking together as a family. We'd take these drives out to the countryside, and we'd walk every day. And that was helping me kind of pull myself out of that stuck feeling of I need something more than just being at home with this baby every day all by ourselves. Like I needed more. And so it was then that I found, it was like a 6 weeks course on Facebook to try aerial silks.
Well, I want to go back though, because your passion has been dance for your whole life. So I want to, before you go into that, let's go back a little bit in how much dance meant to you Because I remember I want to say you were on drill team.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started dancing when I was 10. I was having a really hard time in school. So my mom put me in dance as a form of like to help my brain connect with rhythm, because they say connecting rhythm to mathematics is really helpful. And it's good for your self value and self esteem to have something you're good at. And plus, I was always dancing around the kitchen and being silly and stuff. And so she put me in dance. And so that became a very valuable experience for me. I learned how to work as a team. We became very competitive. And then in high school, I made the dance drill team. And so that was the year I quit dance and just focused on pure drill team, because there was just not enough time to do it all. And so, yeah, that was like a sisterhood for me. And Mrs. Cottrell was our coach, and she was like a second mother. We were with her and each other as sisters, like more than we were at home. So that was our second home, was at the high school, practicing and committing every ounce of time to that.
So I know you owned a dance studio after high school. I'm assuming this was before you were married.
Yes, correct. Yep.
So you ran that for how many years?
So I owned that for 4 years, and I was working full time for an orthodontist too at that time.
How fulfilled did you feel when you were running that studio?
Oh man, it was a lot of responsibility because I was young. I was 19, 20, 21, 22. I didn't know anything about business, but those kids, man, oh my gosh, they filled my bucket every day. Watching them perform and get excited about the choreography that I'd create was really super fun. And earning the titles and things that you earn with that was my whole life.
Now, I don't know your story as far as how you ended up walking away from that, but I'm assuming your husband.
Yeah, I ended up moving to the Spokane area, and so I closed the studio, which was really hard. But I did, and I'm glad. I couldn't do it forever. You know, I was burning the candle at both ends.
Because of how much work it was to run a studio. And at the time, you didn't have a family.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a family. So basically, I'd get up at 4:30 every morning, get ready for my day, do all of my preparatory work that I needed to get my ducks in a row for that day, go to work at 7. We were off at 4:30. I'd go right over to the studio. I would teach 4 to 5 classes. I was done at 9, and then I would clean the studio. I would stay there, do most of my book work until about 10, until I was like, okay, I really need to go home and go to bed. And then somehow, somewhere in that mix, I ate something, I think.
So were you still running the studio when you met your husband?
Yes.
And so you had to make the decision to move forward in your relationship with your husband to close that. That was a part of...
My studio was in Moses Lake, my hometown.
Right.
And that's where I was living and working. And I met him through my sister. And so they lived in Spokane. Every weekend I would travel to Spokane to go see him. And I commuted for 5 years. That's love.
That's so long. Oh my gosh.
Wind, snow, wind, rain, sleet, and hail. Yeah.
So you loved him, but you loved dance. Was that a hard thing to close, or were you like, I just know this isn't compatible with the life that I want to create?
Yeah, I hated to close it. Like, I had really deep personal connections with the parents and all the kids. So to close down, I tried to sell it to keep them a home and just bring in a new owner. But it's hard in a small town. It's hard to even find instructors. I had 7 instructors working for me. So honestly, I didn't even hardly pay myself. It was just a pure passion project. Because of that, I just made the decision to go ahead and close it. Moved to Spokane shortly after that.
Got married, had a baby, loved your life. So I'm sure, because I know you and I are so much alike. I know for me and I know for you, there's no way you would ever put work above your children, because ultimately there is no way I'm ever going to allow anyone else to be the main caregiver for my children. Yet there's a part of you that needs to be doing something different. And maybe it's providing for your family. Maybe it's creating something. Maybe it's creating an income. What is that for you? And when did you feel like that was missing?
Yeah, it was probably a good 2 years after Waylon, my first son, was born, that I was really like, I need something just for me. I wasn't ready to like commit to a business at that time. So I just slowly, by baby steps, kind of reintroduced those passions back into my life to maybe cultivate that idea.
What though was life like when you're a mom? And I just want to tap into, because I can so relate. I know what it's like when you are a mom and you take so much pride in being a mom, yet what did it feel like that you knew you needed to pursue more?
More me time, some self-care. time out of the house, that I wasn't being a wife, and grocery shopping didn't count. That was still being a mother. I was still buying things for the family. What are we going to make for dinner? I needed time just to shut off of my mind and focus just on myself. And for a lot of parents, I'm not going to say moms, because it's probably for dads too who stay home or overwork themselves or whatever. We need that time. We need that time to be our best selves, because if we don't pour into ourselves, no one else is going to do it. You know, we get little snippets and glimmers from our husbands and our spouses or our other kids or our parents, family members, friends, right? All those people contribute to the filling of our buckets. But ultimately, if we don't do it, we have to create that time. Otherwise, it's not going to be there. And so for me, that's what it was. I really desperately needed that, because my mental health wasn't great.
Like what was going on there?
I think a little bit of it was probably postpartum depression.
Sure.
You know, I'm such a social extrovert that my baby was a pretty hard baby, and I breastfed him. So he constantly wanted to nurse all day, and he wouldn't nurse if anyone was in the room, you know, so it just added a lot of complications and challenges. And so I would stay home.
But like, what did it feel like? What was missing for you? Or what made you know I've got to change this?
Just probably recognizing my mental health capacity, that I was isolated. I wasn't really getting out there and talking to any of my friends. I wasn't going and doing anything. I didn't ever leave the house.
And you're so bubbly. That's so not your personality.
I know. And that's why it was so detrimental to my spirit. I had to do something, you know.
Was Jason also saying you need to get back to, okay.
He's like, you need to get out and just go on a walk, even if it's 5 minutes. And I'm like, to bundle up the baby, get the stroller, and do all this stuff for 5 minutes. Oh no, if I'm walking, I'm going. So that's when he was like, okay, when I'm going to come home early from work, and we're going to drive out to the countryside, we're going to take the baby in the stroller, and he got this really cool pack, and he would carry him. So that was another thing that was hurting me, was like my body was hurting from sitting around and just holding him and nursing him all day. Mm-hmm. So to get out and exercise, that was another thing. I knew I needed to move my body. Mm-hmm. And that's always been really important to me. And so when we started walking and doing all that, that's when I realized, like, okay, this is really good. I'm feeling happier. I started losing a ton of the baby weight. So more pluses than just feeling better. I was gaining who I felt like I was before I had him back.
Yeah. Do you feel like you kind of had lost yourself in motherhood?
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is almost like not sad, but a hard thing to acknowledge, because it almost brings about this like guilt, because we should be so committed to our children, and we are, but we have to honor both.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of times why people don't do anything about it, because they do feel selfish, especially if they were to start going to the gym and leaving their baby at home with a caretaker, you know, like, oh, I can't leave him. And oh my gosh, you know, and that's what stopped me for so long.
Did it?
I was finally like, okay, he can go 2 hours without nursing. I'm going to have to do it. And I did. And it was hard at first. Like on my way home, Jason would call me, okay, when you're going to be home? He's crying. And by the time I'd get home, he'd fall asleep.
There's so much guilt when you've been used to being mom and you leave. Yeah. There's like this heaviness. It's a combination, right? Of, oh my gosh, this feels so good, and also feels so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you started, I want to get into, you love dance. I remember you being phenomenal. Did you have a part of you that felt like that part I'll never get back?
Well, that's where I turned to first. I was actively looking for an adult dance class in the Spokane area, which at the time I didn't really find anything. So I was trying like Zumba and things like that. And that was fun. But it was really hard because I hadn't worked out for 2 years. Well, 3 years really, because I was pregnant. I didn't work out when I was pregnant. And so it was a lot to get back into. And so I never really did go back into the dance industry. However, recently within the last like 10 years, I have started teaching dance camps in the summer for some gymnastic centers around here. But yeah, I haven't ever had the desire to open up a dance school again.
Now, is that because of how much work you knew? No.
Yeah. I don't have quite that much time commitment right now. Mm-hmm. My kids are still young. And so I think doing what I do now it's a lot better because I can take an hour out of my day here, hour out of my day there. And it's not like I have this huge schedule that I'm committed to. And I can kind of write my own. Yeah. It's a small setup, so it's helpful with that.
What was that journey like of identifying or did you try multiple different things before you found silks?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd go back to the gyms, do the Zumba, and then I'd stop doing that for a while. And then I would get back into weightlifting. And so I just tried to stay faithful to going to the gym, and it just always kind of fizzled out. And that, I would say, that's when I found, or maybe Silks found me, I'm not sure. But that's when I found this little teaser course that was 6 weeks long, and it was $100. And so I'm like, well, what do I have to lose? I could try that, and I might be crazy. I probably won't be able to do any of it, but I can at least try and say I tried it.
Did you have some thoughts though? Like, what if I can't figure it out? Or what if it's...
I just knew I would eventually get back into something and find my knack. I just knew it would take time. I'm a pretty positive person, mostly.
I know you are, because I know who you are, and I've known you for so many years, and I know that about you. But I think that it's important for people. I'm a positive person, yet we all have moments where we doubt ourselves. We have limiting beliefs, and I think it's important for people to hear from someone who from the outside looks so positive all the time. No, actually, there's hard times in our lives where we doubt what we're capable of, or we doubt we'll figure that out, or we doubt we can learn something new. And so was there any reservations for you when you saw the Silks class? Were you thinking, what was it, an instant I'm signing up, or was it, I don't know?
Yeah, it was a mixed bag of feelings, but I was excited to try it. And so I did. And the first class I took was so hard. I was like, I don't even have any business being here. But then the next week I went back, and there was only half of the people that had shown up. So there was like 30 people in a class.
Wow.
And we were all in this big circle doing this warm-up planks and stuff, and I was just dying. The second week I went back, and there was 15 of us. The third week I went back, there was 8 of us. And those 8 are the people who stuck through to the whole 6 weeks. And after the 6 weeks, I could do a couple poses in like a hammock knot, and that was it. Yeah. I could climb up like 1 or 2 climbs.
How would you, for someone that's listening, I'm going to stop you there. For someone that's listening that doesn't know what we're talking about, describe what Silks is. I've seen a lot of your content, so I know, but if someone's only listening, because I without seeing your content, I wouldn't have any idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. A lot of people call it, are you still doing that curtain thing? They think it's curtains, but basically it's fabric. It's made out of nylon tricot, and it's rigged from a rigging point up, preferably above 16 feet high. My rig is 20 feet high. And so the way you rig it, it's one long piece of fabric, but the way you rig it is like it's folded in half. So it looks like there's 2 pieces of fabric hanging down, and you can climb up, wrap your body up, wrap your feet up, do splits, do rotations. You can do drops. It's really hard, but it's really, really cool and very challenging. So yeah, is that a good enough description?
I think so, for sure. I feel like it's a combination of dance and gymnastics.
Yeah.
But hanging from fabric. It's very beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing to watch. I've seen some of your clips that you've posted, and I can't even imagine the strength that it takes to actually do the performances that you do. So you took this 6-week course. Obviously, at some point in there, you fell in love with it.
Yeah. So at the end, this is the part of my story that I love the most. At the end of 6 weeks, I was getting my shoes and socks on, about to head home, and the instructor flagged me down and she said, Gina, are you going to go home and sign up for the next session? It starts next week. And I'm like, I didn't really have the heart to tell her, well, I wasn't planning on it, but she goes, well, I really think you should. And I said, you do? And that really gave me this glimmer of encouragement.
I believed in you.
Yeah. And so I have no idea what the heck she saw, because at that point I wasn't able to climb up or do anything.
I don't believe that for her.
No, I'm really serious. I couldn't. And so that's why I was kind of like, well, why do you think I should? But she did. She thought I should. And so I'm like, okay. And I asked her if she mind if I sat there and watched the next class to kind of just observe and collect my thoughts. And of course she said yes. And in that moment, Kendra, that's when the magic in my brain happened. And it was because in the next class, I saw these women who were in their 50s and 60s. There was about 12 of them. They were all climbing up, wrapping their bodies up and doing these little loop-de-loops all the way down. And that was the green light for me. Like, wow, if they can do this, I can do this for sure. I know I can.
Because of their age.
Yes. I'm like, that, if I were to see them on the street or sign up for the first class, I'd been like, what are they doing here? They're too old for this because of my limiting beliefs. See?
Sure.
And so I went home, signed up for the next course. And then about 8 months later, I did my first performance.
And what was that like?
It was incredible. Oh my gosh, that was like the best feeling in a long time. My first performance in
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the difference in, because I think that we all go through this as we age, and going through life where you feel that you're not maybe progressing or pursuing something versus at what point in your journey with silks did it start to fill your cup and start to fuel, I found me again?
Yeah. Probably within the next couple of months when I was doing my Avid weekly training and I really started reaping the fruits of my labor by staying committed and showing up every week. Because I would come and the instructor would tell me things like, wow, Gina, you're looking so strong today. What else are you doing? Are you working out at home too? Like, you've really improved within the last 3 months. And those words of encouragement were really vital to me to keep me going. They definitely filled the bucket and filled my value so much because I knew I was working so hard. And it was a sacrifice to get there every week. You know, Jason came home early from work so I could be there on time. He would stay home with the baby after he had had a long days of work, you know, and then wait for me to come home while he was crying, you know.
How old were they when you started? Or did you only have Waylon?
Yeah, Waylon was about 2 when I started. And then, so fast forward to that first performance, that I also found out I was pregnant with my second baby. So I was 8 weeks pregnant when I did my first performance.
Oh my gosh. So was there a part of you that thought, I'm going to have to let this go for a while?
Yeah. So typically you don't have to. If your body's already like built up the stamina, you can still train during pregnancy. You just aren't supposed to do any new things or drops or things like that. But oh my gosh, I was so tired. I couldn't go upside down at all. I just felt like out of breath. And so I took about a year and a half off. It was my hiatus. And so I finished out my pregnancy. I had him and he was about 6 months when I got back into it, which yes, I did have to start pretty much at square one again to regain all of that stamina and strength back. So that was quite, you know, you can imagine how, what's the word I'm looking for? Disappointing.
Humbling?
Yeah. It was like, oh my gosh, but it came back way faster than it went in to put in. It came back really, really quickly. So I started performing shortly after that again. So it was all fine.
How do you feel that you are as a mom compared to before and when you weren't investing in yourself to now investing in yourself? And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you're helping others as well. But what's the difference in how you show up in the other areas of your life after investing in yourself in this way?
Well, I mean, I feel like I could put so much more attention to my kids and deal with the things that they need me to be there for because I'm not constantly in this spiral in my own head of how am I going to get unstuck? How am I going to, boy, it's really hard to put into words. Because for the longest time, I just felt like I didn't really have a purpose. I mean, yes, I was a mom, but I needed more. I was meant for more than that. Everyone's made for something more than being a mother. They have their own purpose too. And I did not know what that was. Man, it was such an empty, lonely, fearful feeling, which isn't great. And yeah, boy, it's so hard to describe into words. I definitely just feel like I can, now that I am in love back with who I am because I'm utilizing my full potential, I guess, then I can just dedicate so much more time and attention to my kids that they so desperately need, right? Whereas I felt like the real selfish part of me was dwelling on my own self because I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And so technically, I feel like I'm definitely less selfish because I have that and I can put it to the side, take care of my kids, and know deep down that it's there. It's not just lost and I don't know who I am. Kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's such a weird thing because if you think about it, it seems like it would be the opposite. Like I am selfish to take time away from being a mom to my children that are young still and investing in myself. That seems selfish. Yet you're able to give them a so much better version of you. Same with your husband because you've prioritize that part of you. So
Yeah.
when did you feel that you wanted to share? Because now you have a studio at home that you
Yeah.
teach out of. How did that transition happen?
Whew. That one's a tough conversation, but I'm going to try to make it as eloquent as possible. COVID,
Oh, sure.
the shutdown, everything shut down, gym shut down.
Oh, was
And
that
so
heartbreaking?
I felt like everything I'd worked so hard for, I finally found my calling. Now it was stripped and taken away from me. And there was not a dang thing I
Oh
could
my
do
gosh, that
about
almost makes me want to cry for you.
it. I know, me too. Ooh, yeah. Luckily for me, yeah. Whew, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for me, I had literally just purchased my own at-home rig, an outside one,
I
and it's
remember
right
that.
window.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got that put up the week before everything shut down, luckily, because I think I would have died.
Mm-hmm.
It saved me. It saved me. I was able to train on it by myself. And so basically, I think it was maybe about a year. And I kind of said, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to pursue my own happiness. And at that time, I had had this new neighbor, and she's like, "What? You do aerial silks? I want to, will you teach me?" And I'm like, "Let's do it." So it just started off with her and I just was teaching her all the little basic things that I started from square one, and it evolved from there. And pretty soon she started telling her friends, and pretty soon I had like 4 people coming over a couple times a night, and we'd just play and I'd teach them, and things got really serious. And then winter happened, and we couldn't do this outside in the winter. And so we shut down for the winter, and that was discouraging. That was a hard time too. But pretty much I created my little business during COVID when everything shut down and everyone else said no. I said yes. And I have the right to pursue my own happiness. And that's exactly what I did. I always tell people I did it my own way. I broke the rules.
So what things were you up against? Where did you have resistance?
I was afraid of what people were going to think. Oh, Gina's breaking well, it's not the law, but Gina's breaking the mandate. She's inviting people over. We're supposed to be at home quarantining. And yes, we were outside. So we kept our distance, but we were sharing a silk. We were all touching the silk. So I was really afraid, and I didn't want to get sick. I was kind of afraid.
Sure.
But that was also the year I turned off the news, stopped watching the news, and that took a lot of fear out of my life and gave me permission to live fully back into my full purpose again without that fear, which I still feel that way. I don't watch a lot of news because of that. I think it puts so much fear into us, and it just makes me grumpy. So I don't do it. Don't do it. So I did it my own way, and I'm so glad I did.
And so you started this business. I'm assuming you didn't start this business from the standpoint of profitability. It was a lot more of a fulfillment driven.
Sure.
And so how has that compared? You sharing your love for silks and watching other women and being able to speak life into them the way you had life spoken into you.
Yes.
How has that changed what you feel your purpose is?
Oh, man. Well, coming from where I came from, being so isolated at home, finding silks as a passion, teaching it to others so they can learn it and find a passion too. A lot of my students are adult women. I have a handful of teens, one child class, but most of them are adult women looking for a solid workout. Some of them do enjoy performing, but that's not really what they came to me for. But being able to pour into them when I so can relate to where they're at, finding the right class to put them in because they'd have to wait for their husbands to get home at work to stay home with the baby. I totally get it, and just during class as we're warming up, we talk amongst ourselves as women, as moms, and we share stories and they relate to everything. I relate to what they're saying. And so I'm really able to tailor what I pour into them other than just the educational aspect of silks. I try to really nourish them up here too and in their little heart. Something so they have that to take home and think about during the rest of the week too. I know I so desperately needed that. And so that's just, I try to give back to them. I don't even know if that was a really conscious purpose at first. I found myself doing it. It's probably a reflection out of what I needed. So I wanted to give that to others because I knew probably they felt the same or at least could relate in some fashion. But now it's definitely my purpose in it. And maybe it's not a mother, but maybe it's a woman who is working 80 hours a week and she's making that 1 hour time commitment to herself, to her health, to move and be around other women who are like-minded and want to learn.
Right. So did you have, when you started and it's COVID and we're not supposed to be around each other, did you have family members or friends that were speaking not negativity into you, but did you have naysayers?
Mm-hmm.
What were they saying?
It was mainly people from the aerial community
Oh.
that were upset. And I think it probably came from a place of maybe jealousy because they didn't have the outdoor setup that I did. They only had access to the indoor. And I can totally see why that'd be so frustrating. You know, I have to be careful what I say. I don't want to speak negatively of anybody. Yeah.
So, like, how did you deal with that negativity coming from people that felt that what you were building or pursuing was wrong?
Yeah. I think it mainly came from, again, a fear-based standpoint on their end because they couldn't run their business. And here I was teaching. And so they were upset about that. And they actually tried to pursue legal action against me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I shut that down really quick. Got myself
How?
got a lawyer. It took a 15-minute phone call is all just to make sure I wasn't doing anything wrong. I want to follow the rules. I don't want to ever do anything wrong. But she basically tried to say I was like stealing her business, which I was not. I created my own people I was teaching. Again, I think it was just fear-based and we shut that down and nothing ever came of it. So it was fine. But it was hard because I had a meeting with her and I told her, again, I have the right to pursue my own happiness.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that. And there's enough for everyone, abundance for everyone to pursue that. Just because I start a business isn't going to take from you. But she did not believe that. And the other studios in town were just fine. We're all very good friends. It was just kind of the problem source of that one individual. And so I don't understand that. I don't think I ever will. I think we just have totally two different mentalities. But I also know that's the difference between who I am and who they are.
Absolutely.
And why my people come to me. I offer something very different, and each studio offers something different. So that may speak to other people. It might be location might be more convenient. And I just wish that they could look at it that way instead of looking at it as a competitor standpoint, you know, and allowing that to come in and take over.
Absolutely. It's like you see the memes of the bread in the grocery store. There's room for a lot of different options.
Right.
To be able to do a business. There's not just one or two allowed. But at the same time, I think that that kind of resistance can absolutely stop a person. Was there ever a moment or a time where you felt like
it stopped me for a whole entire year? It made me feel, you know, because I did have a performance and a teaching contract with this person. And so for a while, I felt like I was a tiger in a circus and I was owned. Again, another reason why I lawyered up and they assured me that that was not even possible. That's not legally okay. And so that's why I went ahead and proceeded. And honestly, because my mental health was so in the toilet then, lack of a better term, it was so low, like that almost did stop me. And my husband was like, absolutely not. You will do whatever makes you happy. So he was a really big supportive sounding board for me. And he was like, no, we will talk to the lawyer. I don't care if it costs $1,000, $2,000. We're going to talk to him and get this figured out. So you have peace of mind knowing that what you're doing is okay. And so with his support, that was super important for me, because had I just been by myself, I would have been like, oh, an attorney costs too much. Maybe they're right. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And, you know.
Mm-hmm. So was this, when you say your mental health was in the gutter at this point, this is after you've been exposed to it, fallen in love with it, been doing it, and then COVID hit and you went through that season where you didn't have it again. So compare and contrast life once you knew what it was like to be investing in yourself on a regular basis to then going back to not. How much worse was that?
It was really bad because it was coming. I mean, you're talking about my passion, right? So after having it stripped away, then I had the courage to decide, okay, I'm going to do this. And then being called out by the very person who I was so loyal to before, it almost felt like a breach of my integrity was being called out, which wasn't the case.
Right.
That's felt like so that did not feel good. And however, that was the year I probably read 50 different books. I'm serious.
Which ones?
Development and growth, a lot of Brene Brown, The Great Leap by Gay Hendricks, Girl, Go Wash Your Face. Oh boy, I could give you a whole list. Incredible books. Mel Robbins. Anyway.
Any of them in particular that you feel was the most impactful?
The Big Leap.
Yeah.
Or The Great Leap, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, that one. And Daring Greatly by Brene Brown.
I love her.
That was so good for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always loved stuff like that. So it's easy for me to dive in when I feel stuck or like, "Ugh, I don't know what to do." I can just dive in so easily. Whereas some people, they might not have that first initial, I'll go read a good book and I'm going to feel better, you know?
Well, was there a period of time where you weren't investing in putting that into your mind versus like what caused, if there was, how did you get back into that if you had a break?
Any adversity I come through when I hit that brick wall where it's either myself stopping me or someone else in my way, and I don't know what steps to go forward with next, I usually will start researching books like, okay, who can I listen to? Who has solutions to help me get through this? And I will say, little side note, Mel Robbins, The High Five Habit. I'm not done with it yet, but I've been reading that lately. It's so good.
I haven't read that. I heard someone else mention it on one of her podcasts recently, and I thought, oh, I don't think I've listened to that one.
Yeah. You got to get through like the first 5 chapters and then it gets really, really good. At first you're thinking you're going to high five yourself in the mirror. Like, come on, I'm not doing that. So if you can get past that and then you understand, she always dives really deep down into the scientific, like neurological science of stuff and why her solutions really do work. So good. And the let them theory. I finished that one. That one's really, really helpful for me. The let them theory.
Oh yes, that's so good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, she dives into the scientific solutions for everything, gives actual logical examples of how to handle the situations, which I love so much. We need that.
Like how does that actually look in real life instead of just in theory?
Yeah. Yeah. How can you apply it to your daily life with real life things that you feel are so dumb and like no one else feels this way? It's just me. Oh, no. She gives her raw examples and they're not pretty. They're awesome. It's like, okay, she's normal. Like she knows. She's been through it too. Not alone in this.
What I love about her is she is so willing to be vulnerable about her own, I don't want to say shortcomings, but thought processes that maybe weren't serving her. And I feel that's so empowering because you think, oh my gosh, that's so relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would love to meet her and talk with her and pick her brain and just tell her how much her book has influenced me, you know. Same with Brene Brown. She's incredible. But yeah, that's my go-to. Anytime I feel stuck or I'm faced with any sort of brick wall where I don't know which step to take next, and I know that there's something behind that wall that I'm supposed to forge forward through.
When did you decide that you wanted to have a studio? Did you already have a shop on your property?
No, we built it.
Did you build the shop for the studio?
Yes. And so half of it is Jason's storage and the other half is mine.
How funny. How often do we build shops for the wife?
Not very often. And he's always like, babe, you're infringing on my side. And I'm like, well, you're the one who keeps spending money to put things inside of it. And I'm the one earning money inside of it. So
when you decided to build the shop, did you have a formal business plan of I'm already making this much? What caused you? Was it the winter time?
It was winter time, and I think Jason could see my spirits go down because I wasn't teaching and exercising. And at that time we didn't have a place to train yet. So I was like, we got to do something. I'm going stir crazy. I'm literally feeling crazy because I didn't have my outlet, you know?
Yeah.
And well, I think we need to build a shop. We need one anyway. We have property. We have a boat. We got all this stuff we need to protect and maintain and keep track of. And you can have this side and I'll have all the storage in my side. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. And, you know, before that, I had looked at a few places and it was just astronomical to rent a space. It's not feasible. I would have to be teaching classes all day, every day to even make it barely break even. And I wouldn't be able to physically do that, nor would I want to put in that much time and effort right now when my kids are so young. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. So, and I want to know how it's fit in your life. Obviously, it's super fulfilling for you to be able to offer this and to have this community, because to me, what I hear is you have a community of women that you get to sow into, and it's almost like you're filling their cup, but they're also filling your cup.
For sure. I do that all the time.
Yeah. And then at the same time, you've been able to obviously build a shop on your property, which has increased the value of your property. Has it been something that, compared to when you ran the dance studio, how has running this business, what is the differences? Like you talked earlier about how you had no extra time and it wasn't even profitable. So it was extremely stressful, not profitable. How does that business compare to running this business?
Whew, yeah. Well, back then in the dance studio days, I had 167 students. So I had to have a lot of employees. And now I only have 12 students. And it's lovely because I have that personal connection with each and every single one of them. I get to know them individually. I get to help them individually. I get to focus and hone in on where they need help or maybe expand on what they're already thriving in. And so that's been really a game changer. I like the interpersonal connections that I have with them. I get to be a little bit more selective about who I bring into my space. I call it my little sacred place of refuge, you know? So I'm very selective about that. I don't just open it up to I don't have a website. So I kind of hand select it. If I have a friend who really wants to try silks, I'm like, okay, well, let's get together. Let's try it. And I just kind of hand select a few people who I invite into my space.
Oh my gosh, you have so much, I don't want to say control, but almost like control over how you're running, so much more control over how you're running your business compared to before. So one of the things that I was wondering, did you have imposter syndrome? You obviously didn't go to college or do anything like that to learn how to do this. You learned as a student, you loved it, but was there any of that?
For sure. Imposter syndrome is definitely a huge thing. I think I overcame a lot of hurdles by reading a lot of those self-development books we talked about earlier and just my husband's support and belief in me. Like during COVID, he was like, I don't know if I want to invest in this. What if this is just a thing that a phase you go through? And how do you know you want to teach and have all this business? And I'm like, well, I did it with the dance studio and here I am. This is my 6th year going strong teaching. And so he started seeing that and noticing the mental health and how beneficial it was for me to have an outlet just for me.
Did you, when he said, what if you don't stick with this, did you feel like, what if I don't stick with this? Or did you have 100% conviction?
Well, no, that was part of my issue was like, well, what if the kids get busy with sports and I have to cut back? But that was kind of the liberty of doing it too, right? Like I can create and manage my own schedule. I can say how many hours I want to work. If this isn't working for us and you have to go travel around, Jason, I can stop and I can be at home. Or if we want to really ramp things up, I can do that too. I can start marketing, getting more students, or maybe branch out into a bigger place and have more silks. Cause right now I only have 3 silks we're working with. So it's limiting, but at the same time, I can't imagine having too much extra because it would be so overwhelming. No one would get the one-on-one attention that I'm able to give to them as well. So, and I think that's the difference between other studios and what I have to offer is there's only 3 people on the silk at one time. So my attention is definitely there.
A lot more intimate.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine having a whole room of people twirling around and asking for my help. And I wouldn't be able to help them all, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, are the boys in sports now?
No. So Waylon, they did swimming. They tried golf. They've done some baseball camps. They're more like water sports in the summer. We do a lot of boating, like wakeboarding and
But
surfing.
you have been able to balance all of it.
Yeah.
Which has to feel so good.
Yeah. And Jason, like I said, he's so supportive. So if the boys were in sports, he's willing to come home half an hour early to get them and take them to anything that they wanted to do. And because all of my classes are in the evening after everyone gets home from work or school.
Right.
It's hard to do that during the day unless you have a specific group of moms who would like to do that. But again, they need childcare. And I did have one mom say, well, is it okay if I bring my daughter? And I'm like, no.
This is for you.
And it's for safety. It is. But
Sure.
ultimately, it is for them and they need to cut out that time for themselves. I know I needed it. And so that's definitely a place that I want moms to know that they can do that for themselves. And it's not selfish.
What advice would you give to the woman that's listening that is not carving out time for herself and isn't even sure what is out there that she might find if she's courageous enough to carve out that time?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of moms who I think they'd be willing to try new things, but they don't know what that new thing is yet. So maybe it is silks. Maybe it's a painting class. Maybe it's a cooking class. I think there's a lot of baby steps to take before because people just don't even know where to start. But by getting out and just trying something new that they normally don't know if they'd even like or think they could do, maybe it's zip lining. I don't know. Do it. Stop waiting. Take the time. Even if it's 10 minutes, start with that 10-minute walk. Or 10-minute run. Maybe you never thought you were a runner and you want to start running. Do it. Just try it. Give it a week. Stick with it and see what happens, But just start somewhere.
How would you compare the difference that Silks has as a participant for you in filling your soul, filling your bucket, versus the difference that you're making in other women's lives when you're running it as a business, sharing that? How would you compare those two?
They're very different. As a participant, I get to be a student, so I'm always learning new things. Whereas an instructor, I'm focused on the student and making sure that my communication skills are proper enough so they can comprehend the words that I'm saying. My body is able to demonstrate it, but speaking it is two different things. Learning to communicate has been interesting for me. So it's been kind of a fun avenue, really, as I develop my teaching style. Because, I mean, like I said, I've only been doing teaching for 5 years. So 6 years. And so developing that has been hard, but I do love being a student so much. And I really need to carve out my time to be a student outside of just teaching, which I don't usually do. And I need to do it. It's kind of hard. As a performer, it's super fulfilling, fills the bucket. You know, people give you all sorts of compliments. Of course, it's unique. So not a lot of people, it's not like an overabundance around here. It's different. People haven't seen it before. So it's very refreshing. And so that's really, really fun to showcase that for people. And when I go to someone's house and they introduce me to someone and they're like, oh, well, what do you do? And I tell them, oh, here we go. But it's so fun. I love to talk about it. It will overtake any conversation for hours because people are just fascinated with it. They have so many questions. So that's been really, really fun for me too. I'll talk about it till the cows go home.
And that's what they say always, is do something that you like can't stop talking about, that you just absolutely are passionate about. That's where you should be focusing your time and attention.
Well,
go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, I have a ton of health benefits that I am super passionate about that go along with silks too. The biggest one is,
how important is it for a woman to incorporate movement of some kind?
And it's just not movement. I mean, I think a lot of the women in that older class that I saw, remember my story when I had first started, I want to say there was 3 or 4 of them who were physical therapists, and they were trying to build their bone density. And that's why they started the class, as a natural way to build bone density, because they could just take a medication and get it. But what we don't understand is when we take a medication to build that bone density, if we fall and break our leg, our bones could actually shatter. Whereas if we break a bone when we build natural bone building density, it now splinters and it's a lot easier to repair the bone. Instead of, envision a shattered bone compared to a fractured bone. I remember them teaching that to me early on, and I'm still so amazed at their strength and their knowledge. So I love working out with them and playing with them because they are a wealth of knowledge. So yeah, the bone density for me is a huge factor in health benefit. Any weight bearing exercise is bone building. So even weightlifting, but like pull-ups and weight bearing things, TRX straps, those are all building of the bone density. So super, super critical, especially for us women.
Especially over 40. Like here we are in our 40s now.
Yep.
And how much we have to do, not just to maintain what we have.
Yeah.
And just learn.
Let's face it, most people don't get enough nutrition in just their foods that they eat. So they take supplements, but it's still not exactly the same. Your body still doesn't absorb it quite as well as if it comes from a natural source out of your food, so it's hard to get it all in.
Yeah, it is. But it's so important to prioritize it. What would you say to, when you started Silks, I'm guessing you had no idea you would ever eventually be running a business around this.
No way.
But what would you say to the woman that's listening that is on the other side of having that courage to put herself out there, to try something maybe new and different, to maybe push past the limiting beliefs that she's feeling or believing? What would you say to her?
Worst case scenario is you're going to get a little stronger. I mean, not try it, Worst case scenario, it's not for you. And you say, well, I tried it and I don't think I'm cut out for that.
Now, let's say though, they find something that they're just so passionate about. What does life look like living out, sharing something now? Like what if you had never what if you never did that 6-week class? What would you be missing out right now?
Oh my God. I can't even imagine how different my life would be the last 10 years, well, the last 8 years of my life has been revolving around silks. And either as a student or teaching, all of my performances have helped me grow so much and filled my bucket in certain ways. You know, the kind encouragement, either if it's from a spectator or a coach, those were really valuable pieces of encouragement that I received. I really needed those for my self-development, for my value. Not to say that other people's words are totally, is what's driving that, but boy, I need that. I needed that, and I still do.
We all need to be in the process of pursuing something, and we all need some acknowledgement for the effort of that process. When you have been in especially when you were doing all of the dancing and you're performing and you're getting almost like accolades, and then you get older and you don't have any of that in your life and you're just going through the motions as a mom, it's like, who am I now?
Yeah. Now what? Okay, that's great. I did all that cool stuff, but now what? Like,
Also, I was curious about, because I know that Jason has a very successful career.
yes.
I was just curious about how it feels to be financially contributing to your family.
Oh, that's such a great question. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. So, yes, Jason, my husband's super great provider. I mean, I didn't really need to work, but that was definitely a part of me that I felt was important. Like, and I have no idea if this was stemmed by how I was raised or what, but my mom was a stay-at-home mom until I went to kindergarten, and my dad was a farmer. And so we didn't have a lot. There was 8 of us kids. I was the youngest of 8 kids. Crazy, huh? And so we didn't have a lot. And my mom, I remember her being very quiet growing up. And when I went back to kindergarten, she started working. And when I became a mom, she told me that that was one of her biggest regrets, because there were times where I was sick and she needed to stay home with me. And instead she would take me to her work with her. And here I am sick and like needing to lay down and be in bed. And she goes, I just always regretted that, not being able to give to you what the older siblings got. And
Did you ever see that? Do you remember ever, you probably weren't even aware of that.
I wasn't, but my mom was so quiet. Looking back as a mom, now that I'm a mom, like I totally know that there were so many internal emotional battles she was in her head about. I just know it. And if I ask her, she'll open up and talk about it, but otherwise she keeps it very private to herself and just kind of suffers in silence about it, And she has Parkinson's now, which I know that's neurological, but I can't help but wonder if it's from stifling all those years,
Right.
Gosh, but she went back to work so that she could have her own money. My dad was super ultra conservative. Oh my gosh, my darn dad. Love him, but he was so conservative. He would get mad if anyone scraped their plates off in the garbage because we were wasting food. That's how we were raised, because he was born in the Great Depression.
Right.
We were raised to be very thrifty, very conservative and smart and cautious with our money. And it was so much pressure sometimes that my mom, that's why she went back to work, so she didn't have to ask him for money. She could just have her own and not be yelled at for buying junk, or she could just spend it on whatever she felt was proper. And so with that, she put me in piano lessons and paid for my dance lessons. And so I was trying to think about how to answer a question like that without going too heavy into my upbringing. I had a wonderful.
That's a big reason why it's totally connected.
Yeah. So I'm so thankful that my mom saw that in me and thought that that would be an asset to my life, and saw my natural talents, because she definitely worked to pay for all that. And that was one thing my older siblings didn't get. My brothers, there's 5 boys and 3 girls, and my sisters, they got piano lessons, but not like I did. And dance was so expensive, and all my brothers just played the school sports, so it wasn't like it is now where they're on a team and they pay hundreds of dollars and travel all around. It wasn't like that then.
Right.
But yeah, my mom, she worked her buns off, and so did my dad, but I was the baby. So I'm sure my siblings say I was spoiled. I got it all,
Well, no sibling gets the same parent.
Yeah, for sure. Married Jason, and here he is, super educated. Our plan was to have me stay home when we had kids, and so that worked out really well for our thought process and family dynamic. We all agreed to that. But yeah, the time came that I'm like, boy, Jason, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I need more. He goes, well, do you want to go back to work? You can if you want. And I'm like, not really. I think I see that as like really stressful to get up and get my babies ready and then get myself ready and take them to a daycare. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. It would be more stress than anything, you know? And so I wrote it out, and I do believe, Kendra, that, and I feel super prompted to say this, timing is really, really critical. There was several years in there that I had to wait for my proper timing in my life that was right for my kids and right for me to jump into all of this. And I'm still waiting. I have bigger dreams. I'm still waiting for those to be fulfilled, but now is not the right timing. There will come a time when I will jump on those opportunities and expand and dream and grow. But I'm happy and content right where I'm at right now because my family's content. You know, the whole well-oiled machine is well-oiled right now. And
everybody's prioritized in some way.
And so I feel like I'm right where I should be. And in the meantime, I have these dreams that I'm sure I'll grow into, or maybe we'll scale back, or who knows. But I'm open and I'm ready for it. But timing is important.
Because I'm sure there was a time where you didn't have any dreams.
Right, correct. Yeah, and I wanted to, because I have worked my whole life since I was 14.
Yeah.
I was earning money. I was making something productive of myself and contributing in some fashion or form. And yeah, so with the support of Jason, he really helped build me up to the point where I felt comfortable and confident to like not work or go for it, you know? So, and he'll still kid to these days, like, boy, I wish you could make enough so I could retire. And I'm like, I don't think that would ever happen, but that's my belief.
I'm making enough to pay for the shop.
Right.
Like, it's so interesting because we're wired so similarly. I don't even fully know what it is about making money that is fulfilling, and why is it fulfilling? And I think it does still go back to childhood, but why is it, like, what is it tied to? Is it tied to our identity? Is it tied to what it represents? Is it tied to how we feel in the process? Is it tied to the impact that we're making?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I think it's more emotional, of like a fear of knowing I have that for myself if something ever happened, even though we have life insurance. He's got it all rooted and squared away. I have nothing to worry about. But what if something happened to him? Like, I would need to have some form of an option to do something for myself. I mean, amongst the grief of a loss of your spouse, can you imagine not having anything? Like, money's not everything, but money gives you options. And I think when you have options, like, that opens doors, that makes your life a little easier, so it's not so stressful and hard in hard times. And that's important to me, you know.
But it's also, I believe, tied to mental health to some degree.
I think so too.
And I don't know why and how exactly, but it definitely plays a part in, I think you said it perfectly, in that I know I'm capable of more. Going through a period of time where you know you are capable of more, but you're not doing more. And that feeling of, I'm not living up to my potential.
Yes. Gut-wrenching. That is gut-wrenching feeling for me. Yeah. I knew I was made for more. There's something. And I mean, during COVID too, well, this was right before COVID, I even started creating these Christmas benefit concerts because I was just like, I need to do something, and I want to serve the community, but I don't know how. I have limited time, so I have to kind of do it on my terms in my way. And so one day I got this wild hair, and I got a bunch of my friends together, and we're like, let's just play some music and we'll ask for donations. And so I asked the Steinway Piano Gallery if we could host it there, and they were happy to help. And so we threw it together in a couple months, and before I knew it, I had a whole lineup of friends who were very musical. And I asked a few people around the community that I knew performed at like coffee shops and things. And so they came, and we raised $1,300, and I gave it to one of my friends who was struggling really bad. She was going through a domestic violence situation, and I couldn't think of any way to help her, but I saw what she needed was money. Everyone's like, well, maybe we could offer childcare and she can do this and that. But what she really needed was just money. Christmas was coming. She didn't have a way to provide a Christmas for her kids. And yes, we could have donated gifts to give her kids, but that's not what her kids wanted. You know how it is. Kids are asking for special things on that list. So for a mom to go out and buy her kids the very things that they want for Christmas, I'm like, that's what she needs. She needs some money. So that's what we did. And it was a great year. So we continued to do that for a while. And then eventually it kind of fizzled out and we never, maybe eventually I'll get back to doing that too. But that is another one of my passions, is trying to find service projects to serve in the way I can. Again, to just give back to people who have blessed me. So why not give it back? And, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think the other thing that all of this really touches on is the importance of, we're wired for connection. We're
Yes.
wired to be in community with other people. We are not wired to be alone. And I think a lot of moms spend a lot of time alone.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're alone with your kids, but it's not the same as being in community with women and other people that are in the same stage of life, going through the same things. And it's so important to find that community.
Right. Couldn't agree more.
Or build it like you did.
Yeah, you got to create something. And no one's going to come in and save you and rip you from your bed and say, get up, wake up. You're not living your life. You got to do it yourself. And if you don't, you're going to grow up to be an old person with a lot of regrets. And we're going to have a lot of time in our hands when we can no longer walk and work and function like we usually do. And we're sitting in that bed or that rocking chair. Oof.
Yep.
Yeah. They always say life is too short, right? But actually, I think life is too long. Life's too long and too short. You got to make the most of it so that you're not miserable and you do feel fulfilled. And if you don't know what it is, got to go find it.
Yep.
Got to go find
it. Well, I know you handpicked the people that come into your studio, but if someone in the local area wanted to check out what you do, where would you point? What direction would you point that?
Probably just add me as a personal friend on Facebook, and or they can get my number from you if you want, and they can text me and we can talk about it. And I usually have them round up a group of friends, 3 to 6 friends, and we'll either do like an intro to aerial class, or my favorite thing is to just commit to a day of the week in a time and try it for a couple months and see what it's like. And if you hate it, then you just don't sign back up. And if you love it, then here we go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I adore you. And I just know that you were absolutely made for more. And I'm just so proud of you for going out and living that out in such a fun way.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I know. I pat myself on the back all the time saying, good job, keep going, because it wasn't easy. There was a lot of limiting beliefs, like I wasn't good enough, like the imposter syndrome, and working through those, reading the books, doing the self-development, doing the growth, healing, following clinical psychologists on Instagram and Facebook and all those, instead of scrolling endlessly and shopping and wasting money. Dive in and work on yourself. That would be my advice to anyone who wants to figure it out. If you're struggling, figure it out, do the work. Yep. Or as Brene Brown says, dare greatly.
Your path, your voice, your way of showing up in the world and serving others matters more than you'll likely ever realize. Keep taking those brave steps forward. The world needs exactly what only you can give. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of our community. Until next time, stay true to yourself, stay purposeful, and as always, let no one clip your wings.